Oh my god, y'all. Look at these sleeves, they're so puffy! I'm so excited. Hey y'all, Jackie here, and welcome to Fantastical Follies, where even the most capable of time managers sometimes run out of time. Today I'm going to show you how I panic sewed an entire Regency gown over the span of 4 days in preparation for my attendance at costume college. This is the second part of my Regency Zombie outfit. I've linked to the making of my upcycled stays in the description below. I hope you'll stick with me till the end when I'll give you a bit of a sneak peek of what's to come. I've picked the Laughing Moon pattern number 126, the ladies' round and train gown with high stomacher front. This is good from about 1800 through 1810. I'm pushing it just a little because I'm basing my design off of this fashion plate from the Costume Parisien dated from 1812, but the gathered front view of number C reminded me more of the fashion plate. One thing that has always sort of kept me from getting into Regency is its fondness for whites and pastels, which are colors that wash me out considerably. So when I started doing research and found this particular fashion plate, which was one of my all-time favorite colors to wear, I knew it was going to be the base for this gown. The problem with this project was that between finishing my English gown and taking Taco Bell in, I only had a week from the time I started until my flight to California to get the entire project done. That's not a lot of time for anyone, especially for someone with 3 jobs like me. But I was determined to do it. I will say, because of the extent of my panic sewing, this will be a slightly shorter video than normal, but I promise I had fun with the reveal. Let's get started. Off camera, I taped together the pattern. This by far was the worst part of making this gown. I think it took a good 4 to 5 hours to tape everything together, and I was intentionally only taping those pieces I knew I needed. Part of this was just the nature of the pattern. It's really more of a pattern for a whole capsule wardrobe instead of a single gown, with many options for bodices, sleeves, and train lengths, which is great, but it takes a minute and a lot of tape, so be warned. I'm using 45-inch wide fabric for this gown, so I had to trace and flip a lot of the pattern pieces in lieu of cutting on the fold. I wanted to take a moment while my air conditioning is taking a break and I'm doing this extremely menial task to talk about this pattern a little bit and how extremely impressed I've been with it. Now, I have put together many a commercial pattern, and this one has just blown me away. It is so well marked. Everything has been taken care to bring to your attention, all of the dots, I mean, look at this. They've even marked every single pleat line. When I put it together too, it was great because they had all of the lines extended past where the cut line was. So even if you didn't cut straight, which I never cut straight, you were still able to match all of your lines. It was great. Now, obviously I'm not sponsored. I'm not sure that this channel will ever be big enough to be sponsored. Although if you want to help me out in growing my channel, do make sure that you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and leave me a comment down below and tell me what your favorite pattern company is. It's blown me away. It's so comprehensive, and of course it remains to be seen once I've actually assembled the thing, but the instructions were extremely clear. Cutting layout was clearly marked. They took the time to show you how to cut things out depending on what size, what size you are and how big your fabric is. That's not right. I mean, really, all of the details were attended to. And, at this point, as someone who is fairly new to historical patterns, like, this is now going to be my go-to. Like, I'm going to go there first. And not only is the pattern great, but it's fairly size inclusive. It goes up to size 34. And the cost of the pattern was very reasonable. That's my random little diatribe about this company, and I'm gonna get back to marking all of these pleat lines. Next order of business is to assemble the lining. The instructions suggest assembling this in the quote-unquote wrong way by assembling the straps and then assembling the sides. So that's what I did. Kind of. I did the same to the bodice back and side and stitched them together on the machine. No time for hand sewing when you're on a time crunch. I ironed open all the seams using my tailor's ham. Then I pinned the lining to the bodice with right sides together and turned under the edge of the bodice. I went ahead and stitched the bodice and lining together, leaving the bottom open, then flipped it all right side out and ironed. Now for the dreaded understitching. There is little in sewing I like less than understitching, but it's necessary, 100%. I then basted the arm sides together. Alrighty, with this, the bodice is almost completely assembled. The last thing I had to do was top stitch the folded front to the lining, but I had to stop at the dot. So there's an 1.25 inch basically flap that's happening right here. And it seemed kind of strange at first, but it makes total sense because now this is secured down. There's going to be a bib that goes up over top of all of this. And I'm wondering if this is kind of the step that I missed on my English gown and why I was getting such a weird bubble with the lining. But anyway, that's that for now. Now we're going to move on to the sleeves. You are now entering the Twilight Zone. That's right, folks. I pulled this out of my trunk. This is tutu tulle. No, not the tulle. Anything but the tulle. Ah! It is tutu tulle and I'm going to use it. Why? Because we need these sleeves to puff. And obviously still sitting in my trunk. Okay, so what we need to do is cut between the dots. And I am gonna pin this. Actually, I'm gonna double it. This is how I want to have 2 layers per sleeve. This doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to fit there. So the reason we're doing this is because the cotton is just not quite strong enough to hold itself without a little support. And you could buy expensive silk organza and do it, or you can pull shit out of your trunk and do that instead. So I am not being precious with this. I am just going to follow the curve of the sleeve to there. And then I'm gonna cut straight across. All right, so I'm gonna take 2 of these layers and I'm gonna mark the center here, just so I can line it up easy. If you all didn't know, this is my least favorite material to work with ever. And notice I don't usually do this, but I am pinning double and I'm pinning horizontally because this shit will move if you sneeze at it. Okay, I'm gonna go stitch this down and then do another row of basting stitches so that I can get this gathered. All right, there is nothing I love more than a power sleeve. Can I just say that? So here is what I've done with the sleeves. So the first thing I did was I did my first row of basting stitches at 5/8 of an inch between the dots as I was instructed by the pattern. Then I serged the entire sleeve cap because this is going to be raw, I'm pretty sure, and I want my sleeves to be as secure as possible. I did not stitch the bottom piece because this is going to be encased in the cuff. After I serged it, I went back and did my second round of basting stitches at the top at approximately 3/8 of an inch. Not very, if you can see that, it's not very precise there, but whatever, it's just a puff. And then I went back and did the same treatment for the bottom of the sleeve. Then I pinned the sleeves with right sides together and did the same with the cuff. Next, gather the ends into the cuff. Match the seams and pin. I then like to tie off one end of the thread so it doesn't fall out. Commence gathers. I always like to pull from the bobbin side or the underside of the fabric because it gathers much faster and smoother than using the top. Once it matches the cuff circumference, pin everything together and stitch. I ironed the seam allowance up toward the cuff, then trimmed it down to about 1/4 inch. Fold up the bottom seam allowance and press. Then fold the cuff down to the stitch line, pin it, and then hand stitched it down to the sleeve. Time to set those babies in. Match the notches and edges of the sleeve and arm side with right sides together, then pull the gathers to fit. This was a lot easier than my last couple of attempts because I'm using a legit pattern and not one that's been cobbled together like Frankenstein. Does anyone else find it strange that we call the monster Frankenstein when he's really Frankenstein's monster? I mean, I guess that's long and wordy, but why didn't Frankie give the poor guy a name? What would you name Frankenstein's monster? Let me know in the comments. I'd probably go for Joe Bob.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
All right. So there's the finished sleeve after I sewed it on my machine. Don't forget to press those seams, y'all. Okay, it is 6 p.m. on Friday evening. I just got back from work. I changed my clothes, I poured myself a beverage, and my tiara came in the mail today. I'm super excited. I'm not a girly person per se, but there is something about tiaras that just excite me to no end, so I'm gonna wear it while I work. In any case, yesterday I assembled the entire bodice in about 2.5 hours, so I'm feeling cautiously optimistic about getting this dress done this weekend. Whether I'll get it finished tonight is another story. I only have about an hour and a half to work before I have to deal with human things like cooking dinner and eating it. So I'm going to focus really hard and try and get as much as I can done today. The ultimate goal is to have everything but the hand sewing ready for tomorrow evening. So cross your fingers for me. I'm gonna go get everything set up and start pleating the skirt. First step is to prep the side of the fall front. Cut the marked slit all the way down and try not to panic. Then reinforce the point of the cut using a zigzag or serging stitch on your machine or hand stitch if you have that kind of time. Use your iron to turn in a 1/4 inch seam allowance and taper it down toward the point. Then turn it under a second time and hem it down by your preferred method. And now we move down onto the floor of chaos. Sorry y'all, with 3 sewing projects happening at once, there wasn't a lot of time for sweeping. While I do love a divide and conquer pleat system, these pleats are not all the same size, so I'm kind of glad I had to mark them out first. There are a couple spanning each side of the fall front, and then as you get closer to the back, they become numerous and very tiny. Once everything is pleated, go ahead and stitch across the top to secure those pleats and remove all them pinny pin pins. Then iron down the pleats. Pay special attention to the 2 at the front of the fall front. If you don't iron those down well, they'll make you look wider than you should. Then sew the side seams and the center back seams of the skirt. To attach the bodice to the skirt, line up the dots and edges with right sides together, just like the sleeves, and stitch. From there, the dress was nearly finished. I was getting close to getting this thing done in time. Woohoo! Alrighty friends, last night it was dark and I was frustrated, so I turned the camera off and knocked it out. Basically, I sewed the bodice to the skirt, but only to the fall front. I only sewed the bodice piece, not the lining, and then I hand stitched the lining down. So now all that's left to do is attach the bib front to the front of the skirt and do some nonsense with ties and we're done. So let's go. I finished the lower edge of the lining portion by turning it up and stitching down. Then I measured out 4 lengths of bias tape from some old pieces in my stash, pinned them to the front and stitched them down. All right, before I got any further, I thought it would be wise to just try this on and make sure everything was okay. I'm sorry if you can hear my dryer running. I wasn't planning on doing any vocal filming right now, but time is short. That's actually the fabric for the zombie overdress in the dryer right now, so it's gotta go. I gotta get this done. Oh my god, y'all. Look at these sleeves, they're so puffy! I'm so excited.
It's all fluffy!
I love this way more than I thought I would, and it's not even together yet. So I'm not really sure like what's going on with the fall front here, but I'm trusting the pattern to tell me how to do it correctly, so I'm not really worried about that. I do have a slight concern that the top of this is slightly below my stays, but if I have to, I can make it a little bit longer to cover that. In fact, I might reduce my seam allowance just a little bit in anticipation of it not quite being long enough to cover the tops of my stays. I am running into a couple of issues with my shift, as you can see, but that's an easy enough fix and a problem for another day. So far, I'm pretty happy. I'm gonna get this off and get this sucker finished. Onto the bodice front. First, mark the darts. Pin them and sew them down. Then finish the top edge as you have done on all the other pieces. Tie off the dart threads and press in. Finish the side edges of the bodice. I'm opting for the center front gathering band, so the next thing I did was cut a strip of fabric and fold it inwards. I couldn't find my rouleau turner, so I thought I'd try a new technique where you sew a piece of yarn between your tie on the outside. Once you've sewn your seam, use the yarn to pull the tie right side in. Make sure you clip the corners and trim the seams before you turn it right side out. Took a little effort to get it started, but we'll be using that technique from now on. Here's my little center strip. Sandwich it in between the skirt front and the bodice front, then pin the whole thing together and stitch. Press the seam down. Now to add the ties. This was the oddest part of the pattern, I thought. Part of the ties are left open. Pin this to the outside bit of the gown where the pleats are so that the ties are facing out. Then sew the seam allowance, flip to the inside, and flip the other seam allowance under. Then hand stitch the opening closed. Do the same to the little tab gathering the bodice front together. I realized after I got the ties on that the skirt front was so wide because it helps hide the fall front. It was getting late, but I was determined to get this thing finished. Predictably, I had to cut the hem by a good 4 inches to prevent it from dragging on the ground. Then I turned it up about a ½ inch and hand stitched it down. Just in the nick of time. What's the latest from Madame Renard? The ruby of the season's gone missing. Ran away, more like. We all know how her father gets. Scandal in Trafalgar Square? Well, we all knew she was a tramp. Zombies spotted in Hyde Park. Stay inside? Let no one in? False news. Although that is nearby. No, it must be fabricated. Darling, I'm going out for my walk. There was nothing out there. I didn't see any zombies. I knew they were lying to me. Will someone get that, please? Guests at this hour. What was that? What was No! 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 Whew! That was a close one. I think it almost got me there. All right, where was I? Oh yes, my finished gown. I loved this pattern. It was a dream to work with. Although there are some slight modifications I probably need to make in the neckline. Otherwise, this thing fit me right off the pattern, which never happens. The instructions were thorough and I'm pleased with the final gown. Now, I did buy some trim to potentially put on the, what was I saying? Oh, the trim. I have this one and this one I thought I would put on there. I think I might add it, but I can't decide. What do y'all think? Is less more here or is more here? Let me know down in the brains below. Yeah, the sleeves of this are so puffy. I love this more than I expected to. Just like brains. I also can't believe I got all of it done in time. The only thing I had to nix for Coco was the brain reticule. Brains! Constantly, the last part of this series will be uploaded later in the year when I finally finish the brain reticule. Probably sometime around spooky season. Stop it, Jack. Stop it. That's about it for me today. Up next in 2 weeks' time will be my entry for Cozy, a video about how to overcome cutting anxiety in the practical way. I'm also hosting a brain panel about historical costuming on Saturday the 27th, the same day as the red carpet gala over on the Instagram. Oh, wake up. I'm also speaking on a history bounding panel on Sunday over on Odessa Denby's channel, so if you're not following her yet, make sure you do so. If you liked this video and want to see more brains, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't brained. Thank y'all so much for spending time with brains, and I'll see y'all next. Let me know in the brains below. Let me know down in the brains below. Let me know your brains below. Brains below. Let me know down in the brains below. Okay. Let me know.